Well, today we are in Moira. We are at our church, Moira non-subscribing Presbyterian Church, and we're here to look for a grave, for the grave of someone who was buried in 1938, and he was a significant figure in the history of Ulster photography. But coming to Moira enables us to have a look at the delightful wildflower garden. It looks really nice even on a wet day like this, and of course the main thing about it is it's so good for insects, particularly bees, who do need this help and support in the modern age. And next to it too is the no-mow zone, another great thing for the environment and for the little creatures that are part of our natural world. But the graveyard here at Moira is not that large, so it should be quite easy to track down a grave. Now the source I have tells me that this person was buried in Moira Unitarian Church graveyard, so it's certainly going to be here. And in fact, I have found the grave. It's this one here, and this is the grave of Alan Daniel Coon. Now the gravestone itself is very, very difficult to read, but it is the right grave. I've no doubt of that. And Alan D. Coon was born in Buffalo, New York State in 1867, and he died here in 1938. Now, he had, I think, a remarkable life by any standards. His father apparently was a Baptist minister, and he himself studied law at the local university and initially began to work as an attorney in Buffalo. But this didn't satisfy him at all. And he went out to California and to Alaska prospecting for gold. And when he'd done that, he started to travel and went first to England and then in 1902 came to Ireland, just in time for the great explosion of interest that took place in postcards in about 1902. This was the start of what's been called the golden age of postcards. Postcards became enormously popular. They were cheap to produce, and the development of photography made any sorts of pictures readily available, and these became very popular. And that's how I first came across the name of this photographer with these postcards of Finaghy taken in 1927. The photographer is named as Coon of Moira, and that's what started me to think about him. And I didn't realise quite how significant he was, nor that in the end he had quite a strong connection with the non-subscribing Presbyterian Church of Ireland. In the 1911 census, he can be found living at an address named as Church Wall, Londonderry, with his wife Clara, who he married in about 1908, and the first of their 7 children, a daughter Gladys, who was 2, and a son Gaynor, who was 8 months old. Now, interestingly, he describes himself as a photographer and theatrical showman in the census, and he also gives his religion as agnostic. His wife is described as a Presbyterian. Now, this card of the castle at Clough in County Down gives his location as Letterkenny, and some years after the census, in about 1913, he apparently moved to Letterkenny and stayed there for a number of years. And a lot of the cards produced in this period between 1913 and about 1924 give his address as Letterkenny, including this card, this interesting card of Moira, which would date from about the same time, before 1924. Picture of the market house at Moira, and on the right is Job Palmer's general trader shop, and this is part of the explanation for how he produced these cards. Alan Coon would go from town to town across Ulster, and he would take pictures of prominent buildings and local landmarks, and he would offer them to local shops. And we know that in fact he charged less than £5 for 2,000 postcards. So each postcard would bear his name as the photographer and also the name of a shop, usually as a publisher. So in the case of the ones of Finaghy, it was W.J. Ross, and in the case of this one in Moira, it was Job Palmer. He must have taken hundreds of pictures all over Ulster. And these next few postcards are all from Moneymore, where he seems to have taken a total of about 20 photographs for a general merchant called Devlin. And these are some of the sort of architectural pictures he took. After 1921, he moved with his family from Letterkenny to Moira, although he must have still kept some premises in Letterkenny, because Letterkenny still sometimes appears on his photographs after 1921, like these ones from Moneymore, which date from 1926. But essentially, he spent the rest of his days in Moira. However, he did more than that, because from the start, he was also a travelling cinematographer. He was an early exponent of cinema, and he had a travelling cart that he took all over Ulster, bringing cinema to public places, to different meetings, different organisations. He had a travelling show, which he kept up right up to the time of his death. Indeed, he died in Sligo, and his body had to be brought back to Moira for burial. But he was a very early exponent of cinema. He was involved in the setting up of some early cinemas, but he had a collection of his own Charlie Chaplin films, which he showed all over the north of Ireland. And he also would go to different towns, different places, and he would film the locality and then show the film in a local hall the next day, which was a very popular way of providing entertainment. Now, I don't know what happened to his films. They would be fascinating to see now. I think it's most likely, in fact, they're all long lost, which is a great shame. But this was a big part of his work. It was a big part of him, the showman, the cinematographer. But not much, if any, of that survives. But what does survive, in abundance really, are his postcards, his postcard views of so many different places across Ulster. So a very significant figure, and someone who was connected with our church. Indeed, we know that his family attended the church and supported the church, certainly in the 1940s, possibly before and possibly much later. There are other members of his family buried in the churchyard. So I think it's not too much to claim this figure, this significant figure in the history of photography and cinema and postcards, as one of our own. Somebody worth remembering.